All right, so the last part of section 11.3 that we're going to talk about deals with interior angles, um, specifically of a convex polygon. So I told you a little while ago in a previous video that the measure of the interior angles of a triangle was 180 degrees. Well, if we want to know the sum of all the angles inside a convex polygon, whether it's a triangle or a quadrilateral or a pentagon or hexagon or any others, we can find the sum of the measure of the angles by taking the number of sides, which is n, taking that number, subtracting 2, and multiplying by 180. And so if we want to know how much, or the measure of a single angle inside one of these polygons, then we can simply um, take that number if it is a regular polygon, because remember, if they're regular, it means they're equilateral and equiangular, so all the angles would be the same. So if we want to know the measure of one angle, in a regular angle inside a polygon, we could find its total measure, divide by the number of sides. That should tell us how many angles there are. And so that's what this at the bottom, this formula says. So with that in mind, let's talk about exterior angles, because we're going to use both of these in just a minute in our final example. So the exterior angles, we've mentioned this before, are the angles that are outside the polygon. So in this case, you see a pentagon, and you see the exterior angles that are formed by a side and an extension of another side. The sum of the measures of the exterior angles have to be equal to 360 degrees, which should make some sense. So think about this. If the rotation, if we started along this line and we rotated to there, well then if you extend that side out to here and you rotated to this side and you extend that one out and you rotate and so on, what happens is you end up rotating all the way around a total of 360 degrees. And so if we know, if we have these exterior angles, then we're going to know for a fact that the exterior angles, no matter how many exterior angles there are, the sum of those has to be equal to 360 degrees. So with that in mind, look at this example. It says we want to find the measure of each interior angle of a regular decagon. Now remember, a decagon has 10 sides. So first thing we need to figure out is, what is the sum of all the angles? So to find that, we're simply going to take 10 minus 2 and multiply that by 180. So we know 10 minus 2 is 8 times 180. And you can punch that in a calculator if you need to. And we find out that it is 1,440 degrees of angle measures inside a regular decagon. Now, that's the total. And since it's regular, each interior angle is going to be the same length. And so if we take that 1,440 and we divide it by the number of sides, which in this case is 10, then we should see that the measure of each interior angle is 144 degrees. Now, we've got some information here. It just kind of walks you through what I did. So we found the total measure of the angles inside the decagon. Again, 10 minus 2 times the 180 equals 1440. And then we took that and divided by 10, and it gave us 144. Now, if you have any questions about that, feel free to let me know. It's really just following that formula of finding the total angle measurements, then dividing by the number of sides, because it is regular. That being a key word, regular, means that it has all the angle measurements that are the same. Now, part B here is a little more tricky, at least in my opinion. It says find the number of sides of a regular polygon, each of whose interior angles has a measure of 175 degrees. Well, let's think about that for a second. So we don't know the total measure of all the angles, all the interior angles. We don't know how many sides. That's what we're trying to find. So how can we go about finding this angle measurement? Well, if we know that this angle measurement inside this polygon is 175 degrees, then we also know that its exterior angle must be 5 degrees. Now, we know that the sum of all the exterior angles has to be 180. So if we take 360 and divide it by 5, that should tell us how many. It should tell us how many total angles there are. So we'll take 360 and divide it by 5. And when you do, you get 72. Which means that there's 72 angles, which also means there has to be 72 sides. And so the number of sides is what we're looking for. And again, it's a regular polygon. So we know that each of those exterior angles were 5 degrees because all the interior angles were the same. And so when you take that 5 degrees that's left and you divide it by 360, or divide 360 by 5, it tells you there must be 72 sides. And so this is the measure, or this is the number of exterior angles, which means it's also the number of interior angles and the number of sides. So 72 is our answer. So here's what we did. We said that the interior angles were 175 degrees. Each exterior angle must be 5 degrees. And then we took the sum of all the exterior angles, which was 360, and divided by 5, and it gave us 72 exterior angles. And so therefore we made the conclusion that there must be 72 sides.